go ahead and get started here. So welcome everybody. My name's Brian Peck, Vice President of Sales and Marketing here with Mazévo, and I'll be kind of starting things off here for us today. Before we begin, I've just got a few things I'll just kind of mention and touch on. First off, I'm joined by a few of my colleagues here. You can probably see them in your Zoom screen. I've got Wendy Newland with us. She's one of our Mazévo consultants. I've got Claire DeGroat, who helps me on the sales team. And then I've got Dean Evans, our CEO. So it'll be the four of us here with you all today. And before we begin, I just wanted to cover a couple of quick topics. Those of you that are Mazévo customers probably are aware we put out a release here recently. Let me see if I can pull it up on the screen for you. And there we go. So back on April 18th, a few days ago, we put out an update for taking requests. So I'm not sure if everybody saw this, but we've got a new request form that you can optionally use. You don't have to use it, but this request form was built specifically for taking requests for single day, single booking type of requests. So think of if you've got like study rooms that people are using, usually they just want to book that, kind of one time for, later today or later this week or something like that. It's really a streamlined form for that. So we're pretty excited about it. You can use that in addition to the existing Mazévo request form. It works as a good addition for that if you have those kinds of requests. Like I said, it's optional. If you want to learn more about it, you can go and read the blog article. I'll put that in the chat here for everybody. Here's a little screenshot of it. We also have a link to a video that you can watch, just a little couple-minute video that shows you what it looks like in action if you're curious about that. Also wanted to mention too, another blog article that Wendy wrote a couple of months ago, 3 Mazévo features that you may not be using. We wanted to highlight a few things in the software that don't get a lot of usage, but can be super helpful for people. So I'll put that in the chat as well if anybody wants to check that out here today. So last thing I wanted to mention is if you're getting some good usage out of Mazévo and you want to share the Mazévo love, we would love it if you left us a review. There's some of these software review sites out there, and I'm going to put that in the chat as well here, where you can go and just leave a review of Mazévo and how it works for you and things like that. We love that because word of mouth is one of the key ways that people hear about Mazévo. So that really helps us out a lot. So I'll put that in there as well. Really appreciate that. So anyways, today's topic is on the public calendar. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. If this is your first Mazévo Connect, the way we usually run these is we'll go through today's topic with you. We have everybody muted on the call right now, but we love them to be interactive. So if you want to put your questions in the chat, you can do that. You can also unmute yourself as well. We will be saving a few minutes at the end for Q&A. So that's a great time to ask your question live if you want to do it that way, if you do have questions. So we encourage that. But yeah, so today's topic, we're going to be talking about the public calendar, which I can see several of you on this call, I think, are using the public calendar, but we wanted to do this webinar to help people get the most out of it, because there are a lot of features in there and a lot of things that you can do with the public calendar. So we're going to be highlighting some of those today, also showing some customer examples of how people have implemented the public calendar here. We'll talk about some ideas on how to use it to publicize your events and get the most out of it, and some workflow ideas with it as well, because there is a workflow component to this. And then we are going to wrap up the session today. Dean's going to show you actually how to configure some of these things that we'll be talking about. So if you want to know, how do I set that up, or where's the setting for this or that, Dean's going to be going through that with you today. So, all right. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. So I'll just kind of lay the groundwork here for it as far as what the public calendar is. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Everybody kind of gets that already, but it's just a way to publicize what's happening in your facility, both for internal and external people. So sometimes people think of it as just an external facing only calendar, which it can be. But it's also great too if you're in a big organization and you just want to share what's going on in your department or in your facilities. It's a great tool for that. And some of the things that really make it handy for people is, one, the calendar's always up to date. It's an automated way to just keep the latest information out there because it's linked right up with your Mazévo scheduling system. So it's live, it's real time, and always up to date for you that way. And also too, it has a lot of control built into it. So you can actually control what events show on the calendar and which ones shouldn't, you know, kind of which should be private, which should be public events, things like that. We'll show you where that setting is, but that's something that every event that you put in the system has. So you can kind of decide, you know, do I want to show this to everybody or not? So that's a nice thing there. So it's typically used, like I said, to publicize what's going on and promote events. I'm in marketing myself, so I'm all about promoting things here. And the public calendar is one way to do it. It's also a good way to give people a view of your facility usage there. So if they need to know what's going on, or you're getting a lot of questions like, hey, is this room available? Things like that. It's a way to share that information, and we'll show you some examples of that there. You can brand it and customize it a little bit. Let me go ahead and just highlight here. I've got my calendar up here just so you can actually see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. So this is kind of what the calendar looks like out of the box. And here what I'm looking at is just today's events in my little sample sandbox here. But I mentioned you can customize the branding and the logo and things like that. So out of the box, it's going to have the Mazévo logo on there, and it's going to nicely match with our color right here. So you can change that though. That's under your control. Wendy's actually going to show you here in a moment some examples of what it looks like when it's been branded with a logo that you have and things like that. But this is kind of what it looks like. And then you've got the different ways to view things. A lot of people, when they think of the calendar, think of this kind of monthly grid view type of thing here. So you can look at it that way. And then we've got these are just kind of listing views here, the day, week, and month. So if I want to see, well, what's going on for the entire week or something like that, I can do that there. So now, one thing before we start going through more of the features, I think one thing I really wanted to mention is not only is the calendar there to promote your events, but you need to promote that you have a calendar like this as well. I bring that up because I think in some cases, the calendar can kind of be this underutilized thing where you put it out there maybe on your website or you have a link to it or whatever, but people don't really know it exists and they don't know it's there. So I just wanted to bring that up, that it can be something that you can link to from your public website, and you can even embed it in your public website. Wendy's going to show you an example of that as well. But you can also put it on your internal website. So if you have an internal website for your staff or something like that, that's another great place for it. But another thing too is you want to make sure that your staff is aware that this public calendar exists, because you know, they're probably getting a lot of questions and inquiries from people, things like that. And so if they know it exists, they can also help you spread the word that, hey, we have this great calendar out here. You don't need to email us all the time or call us or whatever. If you want to know what's going on, just go check the calendar. Here's the link, kind of thing. So just make sure that the word's getting out about that. Also, any opportunity you have to share this, whether it's, through a newsletter, or you can even send people the link to it. So if you have some, customers or people that are using your facility a lot, make sure they have the link to the calendar so that they can see what's going on. And that'll just really help make your life a lot easier, kind of cut down on some calls and things like that. So, anyways, with that, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Wendy, because she's actually going to show you a few examples here of some customer calendars. So I'm going to stop sharing. Wendy.
Thanks, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So here's an example of the public calendar that's under account settings. Some of you may have seen that. It's out of the box. It will include all events except those that you have flagged as private. And notice over here on the right, not only can you search for a booking, let's say I want to see everything that has the word practice in it, but you've also got some filters here. So I could look for anything in any of the buildings, or I could look for just things with certain event types. So this is the public calendar right out of the box, and this is up under account settings. All right, move some things out of the way. The next calendar that I want to show you, whoops, sorry about that. Got some things in my way here. I can't get to my next thing here because, here we go. All right, the next calendar I want to show you, and Brian had mentioned this one. This is an embedded custom calendar that one of our customers has put the link to a custom calendar, and Dean's going to show you how to do a custom calendar. They've embedded it within their website. All right, and then the last example that I want to show you is a really good example of a custom calendar that one of our customers has done here, where down here they have created custom calendars for specific facilities. So under facility schedules, I'm going to click on this, and I'm just seeing events for a particular building or buildings. Here's one for the gym. And the reason why we don't have the filters here on these custom calendars is because it's been pre-filtered for you as part of the configuration, of which Dean will show you in just a bit. Okay, Brian, I'm going to turn it back over to you to show how to put some details on a calendar.
All right. Thanks, Wendy.
Okay.
Bring that back up here. All right. So we're back into my little example site here. One of the other things you can do to help promote your events is to provide some additional details. So out of the box, this is essentially what people see when they view the list of events. However, you can provide extra details about these things so people can click on them and get additional information. What it looks like kind of out of the box is they click on an event and they see just some very basic information. You can display who the contact is if you want. I think that's actually an option. You can turn off the contact and the org if you don't want to show those, if that's sensitive information for you, but you can leave it up there. But essentially, this is what they see. This other bookings tab right here, this shows maybe other related bookings. Like if this is a weekly event or a weekly meeting, something like that, they could see that other times that this is happening. So you don't really have to do anything to configure that. That's just the way Mazévo is going to work. But one of the things that you can also do is add other information to add some more color to the event, if you will, where I'm going to use this Baskets of South America right here as an example. And when I click on this one, not only am I getting the basic information that we saw up at the top here, but then you can add some other stuff like an image, a description, links. We kind of leave all of this up to your control, so you can decide what other types of information you want to show. So these things like the head, these areas like the image and description, you can add as many of those as you want. We'll be showing you some more examples of these here in a moment, but just to get kind of the ideas flowing here, that's what you can do with that. So that's what that one looks like. I also have an example of a customer site up here. This is one of our customers out of Israel, out of Washington, D.C. They use this really nicely, like for their services and things like that. If you click on one of their events, you can see here an example of what they've done. There's an event description, image. Some of their events have links on them to other pages and other information. So just some nice ways to kind of add some additional details there. One thing I'll throw out too, since we're kind of showing some customer sites here, if any of you have the Mazévo Public Calendar and you're already using it today and you want to share that, feel free to put that in the chat, or we'll also save some time here at the end. And if you want to show it to people, we can unmute you and you can show us your calendar if anybody wants to do that. So I'll just kind of throw that idea out there now if you want to go and get your calendar link and post it or something like that. So, all right. Yeah, so that's some examples here. Now, this information that shows up on the calendar, you may be asking, well, how'd that get there? What do we have to do to post that? So we're going to show you the process that you can go through to gather this information from your customers, because a lot of times the way we've designed it is that, when people are putting a request into Mazévo, a lot of times that's well in advance of the event, right? And they just need to know, can I get the room? Can I get the time? Can I get my AV and the room set up the way I want? All of that. They may not be ready when they submit their event into Mazévo for approval to give you the image, to give you the description and the links and all that stuff. Because usually that stuff kind of comes later after they've secured the room and they've booked everything and stuff like that. So we've actually put some workflow into the system, and you can use Mazévo to gather that information when the customer's ready to give it to you. And we want to show you kind of what that looks like. And then the other thing too is we've put some approval behind that, because a lot of times what we found is the people in your organization that are approving events for the use of the space, right, and the AV and everything else that goes with it, those might be different individuals than the ones who decide what should go on the calendar and is this appropriate to show to our community, right? So somebody else might need to look that over. So we've kind of kept that in mind. And so what we're going to do now is Wendy and I are going to demonstrate how an event can get this additional information added to it and what that workflow kind of looks like. So you get a live example of that. So I'm going to go ahead now and stop sharing, and Wendy is going to take over the role of the customer, the requester, the person who's having the event that's going to be providing all of this information here. And I'm going to let her go ahead and start there. So.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Can you see my requester screen?
Yep.
Okay. So as Brian mentioned, I'm the requester. I'm going to have an event. I have a safety fair. Special event. It's hosted by the Alumni Association, 100 people. And do it on May 18th. Put it on the South Lawn. No services needed. Here's my event question. I click on submit. And then some calendar details. The question appears, do I want to add some details? Dean will show you how to make this question pop up. And yes, I would like to put some details with it. So upload an image. Yes, I'd like an image to go with my event. My safety fair logo there. By the way, you can change this font, change the size, etc., color. Here's who's sponsoring it. I don't have a Facebook page, so I'm going to skip that piece, but I do have a description that I want to put with it. And let's see, let's provide some directions. All right, let's do that. And that looks good, and I'll click on save. So because it's a request, it will now go to Brian, who's an event planner. So I will stop sharing.
Actually, Wendy, before you
Yep.
stop, do you want to show people how to get back to their event? Let's say a month has passed, the event's been approved, all of that stuff. How do they go
Sure.
back in there and actually add more details or any details to
Sure, absolutely.
their
So
event?
under my events, there's that safety fair. I can come back into it. Here's where I can add more details that I may have later or change what I've got. Okay, so under my events.
Yep.
Anything else, Brian, that you want to?
No, that's great.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah. So that's the process that people can use. And again, you get to decide what those fields are. What Wendy was showing you there, those are just our examples. So you might have other fields or call them something different or whatever, but that's essentially what it looks like here. So I'll go in now and kind of take the role of somebody who's going to approve that information that shows up on the event that way. So jump back in. Okay. So here I am in Mazévo, and I've got my screen now. Those of you that are used to processing requests without all of those details and everything, you know how to go into day at a glance, and that's how you would actually approve the use of the space, right? You know, can we even do that? Is that outdoor area fine for this event? I'm not going to go into that right now, but that's day at a glance. And if we go in there, actually, I will go in and I'll just show you the safety fair is showing up in there in the list of things that I need to look at if that's my role in the organization, right? So, but as I mentioned earlier, it's not always the case that the person who's going to be approving the use of the space for this event is the same person that approves how it looks on the calendar. If it is, that's great, because you can do all of that if you're doing that. But a lot of times it's a different person. And so we've kept that in mind with Mazévo on how these details get approved in here. So if my role is to just approve the stuff that shows up on the calendar for the safety fair, I'm going to do that a little differently. And so let me go in here and you're going to do that under find events is how you do that. So whoever, if I'm the calendar, let's say I'm in the communications department or the marketing department for my organization, what I would do is under find events, I've actually got a view in here called calendar details approval needed. So this is a view you set up. It's just a way to get notified of things that need your approval. Once you've set this up, you can be subscribed to it. So Mazévo will automatically email you once a day or a few times a week, whatever makes sense there, of any new events that have come in that require your approval. And so I'm going to click on this right now just so you can kind of see how it works. And what I'm doing is I'm just saying, yeah, pull up anything in this time period that has calendar details on there. And so we can see here, I've got a few things that need to be looked at. I can tell what status they're in right from here. So notice only one of these is confirmed. These two are request. So even no matter what I do with these requests, my system's set up to not show requests on the public calendar because they haven't been fully approved yet, right? So just keep that in mind as well. But I'm going to go ahead and look at the details that Wendy put in just so I can see what she submitted. So I just go ahead and if I scroll over here, we've got a special icon because again, if I'm the marketing coordinator for this event, I won't be able to go in and edit details about this thing. I can't go in and change the date on it. I can't go in and change the audio visual order like your event planners can. So I have a special icon here is the way I get into this, and that's what this little calendar details icon is right here. So I'm going to click on that. And this gives me a window into all the stuff that Wendy submitted about this event. So these are the details that she submitted in here. If I need to see any booking information, I can get to that under this bookings tab so I can see when it's actually scheduled and the time, where it's happening. You know, I might need that for some context around this. But what I can do is I can now go in and I can review these different aspects of the event. So if I want to look at the event description first, you know, I can read through this. You know, I might want to do a little grammar check on it, make sure everything is, you know, spelled correctly and everything like that. But notice there's two fields here. There's the draft text. So whatever Wendy submitted, we put it in a draft mode. That just means it's not showing up anywhere yet. No, I'm the only one that's seen it. And then down here is the published text. So this is where I, as the communications coordinator, have full control over how this is going to end up on the calendar. So if I like how Wendy put it in here and I really don't have any changes, I can just, first I can start to this copy to publish text. So it just takes it exactly as she entered it, copies it over. And then if I wanted to, I could come in here and I could, you know, change some grammar or add some additional wording or something like that to this to make sure it's ready to show up on my calendar. And once I'm happy with it, then I go ahead and I hit publish changes. And notice that's why we've got these different columns in here. So this one is now published. That means it's just ready to be displayed on the calendar, but these others have not been reviewed yet. So they're not going to show up on the calendar at all until I go in and I look at this and go, oh yeah, that's fine. No problem. Publish changes there. The image, let me see what she uploaded. Make sure that looks all fine. Yep, that looks good. The map, you know, etc. So I can just copy these. You know, I might want to go visit that link and make sure it's accurate or what have you. And then the target audience here. Great. Yeah, that looks good too. There we go. And so now those things are published. And so if this is displaying on the calendar at this point, then when I click on it, all of those fields will show up like I showed you earlier for this. Also, as the calendar manager here, I can also come in and add more details myself. So like one of the things that Wendy didn't add was the Facebook page, right? Maybe she just emailed that to me or something like that. I can go ahead and I can add that in myself. So as the person who's managing the calendar details, I can always override this stuff. I can add to it as I need to right here. Last thing I'll mention, this open event only shows up there if I also have the rights to go in and edit details about the event itself, like the day and the time and the bookings and all of that. So if I don't have rights to that, this button goes away. Again, that's how we kind of keep the security on that, the control, so that only the people you want can actually edit the details of the bookings. So anyways, do we have any questions in the chat at this point?
No.
Okay, all right. So that's a little introduction to the workflow on adding calendar details here. So we've kind of covered a lot of ground here so far today. So for the next section of the webinar, I'm going to turn it over to Dean. He's going to go in now and actually show you how these things get configured. So if you want to start using some of these features that we've shown you here today, he's going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to stop sharing and turn that over.
Let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'm in here, the same database that Brian was in. So I'll start with a couple of things here. The default out of the box calendar that you really don't have to do anything to get turned on is up here under account settings. So you have to be a global administrator to get to this. And when you click on that, here's the link to that calendar. And of course, the logo and the colors that you have specified on this page also show up on there. So when I click view, literally that's the link I would copy to my public calendar or to my public website to point to this calendar. But just to see what it looks like, you can press view and there are those events. So the magic there is the settings honor what's in the statuses here. So if I go look at statuses, there's this column that says calendar. And if you've never used this or you wondered what that was, you would come in here and say, well, my confirmed, there's a checkbox here, display anything in this status on the public calendar, yes or no. So that's your control to turn things off at the status level. Now, typically you're going to say, I don't want canceled events to show on there, but you could turn it on if you wanted and get that on there. So that's really the only thing that you have to do is make sure your statuses are set properly to display on the calendar. If you're using the built-in calendar here, okay? Now the other calendars, you can define as many calendars as you want. And so you have to be a calendar manager, and there's a special role that you have, if you know, that we can turn on. So as a global administrator, I have privileges to get to that. So let's go look at what's going on in here. And so I can have as many calendars as I want. And I've got one here at the top that I wanted to play with. But when you go in and create a calendar, and I just created this today, you get to pick individually here for this calendar what event types you want displayed on that calendar, what statuses. Now, this doesn't look at the little status count flag. You're saying anything that's confirmed or request can be on this. Now, you probably don't want requests because those haven't been approved, but let me show you what would happen if I put canceled on there. You can limit this to specific organizations, and I'll have more on that in a moment, or specific organization types like internal or external. So there's a lot of granularity here in what you can do for filtering. And then you're in control of those views. Do you want to show them the daily, the weekly, the monthly, or the calendar view? And if you have the calendar view, do you want to hide the special dates? So let me turn that on just so we can show you what special dates look like out there. And then the header and the number of days. Katie, you had asked about this in the chat. You can limit how far out into the future these calendars display events. We've heard stories that these pesky little students go out and look way out into the future and figure out who's using the room that they want to use, and then they start badgering those people. So if you want to limit how far out they can go, you can enter a number here. So when I hit save, that'll save those changes. Now to view this, there's two things you can do. You can click this URL and it copies it to your clipboard, or you can just simply hit this link right here and it opens in another tab. And so here's my calendar that I've got out here. Now, if the event was canceled, because I said include canceled, you would have a line through here. So let's see if I have any here that are canceled. There's one right there. There's the safety fair. This must be another example that Wendy was playing with, but if it's canceled, it'll have lines through it. Some people may want to show canceled things on there. The calendar, when you're out here, let's see if we can find something. These are your special dates, your holidays. So some people like that little star on there, some people hate it. So again, when you're in these special calendars here, you can control, do you want those up there or not? Okay. And you can control what views are there. So I'll just change a few of those if you just wanted a daily view. And now this other one here, hide header, let me show you what that does. I'll save those changes, then click on it again. Now notice that the logo has gone away. And so this is more suitable for embedding inside of your website so that it doesn't have our logo and our page on it and things like that. So that's one way to do that. Now, you saw me turn off those other options. And so you can see right here, they're gone. So that's how that would manifest itself on that. So, I mean, it's simply just a checkbox. You probably want those on, and you probably want a header, doesn't matter. So you want to limit the number of days. Let's say we want them to only go out 14 days. And again, that's for the folks that are trying to figure out how far out they can go. Now you'll notice this message, it says it's only displaying events through May 10th. So as I scroll down here, let me go to May, because I'm in April here. Let me go to May, and you'll see it only goes to May 9th. So if I wanted to go out to June, it's basically telling you there's no events that are there. So those are kind of all of your options on configuring that calendar. One other thing you can do, so you've got all of these limits right here that you can filter. You can also use location as a filter. So you can pick buildings, one or more buildings. And for the people that use room tags, you can pick room tags here as well. So room tags would let you get something smaller than a building. Let's say you had a single venue for performances and things like that, and there were other things in the building that you didn't want them to see. You could just narrow this down based on a room tag. So one of the things here, let's just kind of go into this a little bit more. You have this organization filter here. So this could be, I only want to see the Alumni Association's events right here. So that's one way to do that. Now, for the universities on the call here, you may want to create a calendar for each one of your student groups. So you wouldn't want to take and build a calendar for each group. We have a special way of doing that. And what you can do is you can come over here to this organization calendar. And this is a special tool that lets you, after you've defined kind of the main calendar filtering here, leaving out the organization, you can come over to organization calendar. This is every organization in your system. And we're just showing you what kind of organization they are, that organization type. And then you're tying their calendar. So this, let's go to the alumni. They are using the monthly calendar as the basis for their calendar. And this link right here is unique. So it will use all of the filtering for the monthly calendar and limit it to the Alumni Association's events. And so that you could give that to the Alumni Association. They could put that on their public website, say, here's a calendar of our events. So you can see we've used this monthly calendar, and everybody's using that same format with the exception of admissions here. So that the beauty of that is if you change that monthly calendar, if you needed to adjust any of these filters, it's going to automatically change for all of those organizations. So I think that's it on the calendars. The magic of getting those Facebook pages and things like that, we call those calendar details. And so you come over here. Now, these are the ones that you saw Brian and Wendy entering here. You'll notice this flag right here, requestable. So that's very similar to the other things in Mazévo, where you are going to expose this to the requester. So if you turn these all off, the requester would not be able to put in calendar details. And if some of them are on, those are the only ones they would be able to get to. So to add a calendar detail, you just simply put add, you give it a name. Now this is what's going to show up on the website. So you could say Instagram link, right? I'm not an Instagram guy, but you could come in here and say it's a link. So the type of calendar details, there's 4 of them here. So it's text, link, image, and tags. Link. And is it requestable? Yes or no? And you hit save. And now the next time somebody puts in a request, they would be prompted for an Instagram link, and it would format it in the HTTPS kind of thing. So it's that easy to put it in there. You have control over what order these show up on the page when they click on it and display all of the details. So you can drag these around. Maybe you want that up here, probably next to your Facebook link. Hit save. So that's changing the order of that. If you don't want to gather this information anymore, it's just as simple as saying disable this, and that'll turn it off so that nobody else can add that detail on there. So let's talk about the role of calendar manager. So what the calendar manager gives you is the options to build these 3 items out here. Calendar tags, we're going to we're looking at maybe taking that out of the system, but it's another way to categorize events. So you could come in here and say, well, here's my musical performances. They're classical, jazz, and woodwinds. So it's another way to slice and dice your events by these tags. It's almost like an event type, but you can put more of these on one calendar than just one event type, which is what you're limited to today. So a calendar manager can touch all of these. So you might want to give the calendar manager view event privileges, which would then get them find events in the event book. But it would also, when they're in find events and they're looking at things for, let's say, today, it's going to give them this special link right here that gets to those calendar details. Because again, we don't think that normally somebody that's in the marketing department, you don't want them in editing an event. So this is the way that they could get to those calendar details right there. And so you can see that Instagram link right there, and it's live. So as a calendar manager, if I'm adding details, they're essentially immediately published, but this is the same tool that you would use to review the things coming in from requesters. We don't really think you want the requester to be putting links and images and text up there without somebody reviewing them, because that's going to your live site. So, you get somebody in there, a malicious student, and they put some inappropriate link on their image. You're going to want to review that. And so that's kind of the role of the calendar manager. So.
Hey, Dean, while you're in there, we had a question. Nancy was wondering about how to set the filter for the calendar manager so they know what needs to be approved.
Okay. So under find events, the way you would set that up, you'd come in here and you'd go to advanced and you'd add a filter, and it's going to be down here to the bottom, calendar details, and you hit add, and it's going to say, I want to see all the calendar details or only the events that have ones that need reviewed. So in Brian's example, I believe he had it set this way. And so when you look at that, let's go for like this month and say search. So once you get this set, you're going to want to save that view, and then that calendar manager, you could share that with the calendar manager, and that would be the way that they could get to that. And again, right here, even in advanced, they'd have a way to get to that calendar details. So let's see, the only other thing I want to reiterate is the public-private flag. So let me go to this community life here. Again, regardless of whether you're using the built-in calendar or you've defined your own calendar, we still honor the public and private flag. So if I want to turn this booking off and make it private, I simply select it and change the privacy setting and say it's private and hit save. So I know we're showing confirmed on my calendar, but private is not going to be there. So it's just that easy. Now, if you had a whole bunch of bookings here, you may just want to turn, well, you could select them, obviously, but you can also change the privacy of the entire event with this right here. Now, this will override whatever's at the booking. So if you say it's private, regardless of whether you've checked all of the events or the bookings, that'll turn off and make those private as well. So. All right, I think that's all I've got. So if we want to open it up to questions.
Yeah. All right. I don't see, I've kind of been answering the questions as they've rolled in here. But if anybody does have questions, now would be a perfect time. You can unmute yourself if you just want to ask it that way. It's easy. Got a couple of little bit of feedback from people that people are thinking about calendar tags. We're thinking about pulling that out because it's been in there for like a year and nobody's used it. But I think part of that's because nobody even knew it existed. So let us know if you are passionate about calendar tags. We'll at least hear you out. So, and your ideas there. Let's see, Julia just put a question in here. If an event is marked VIP, does that show on the calendar?
No, I mean, VIP events will show, but the flag itself is not put on there as it's not a filter option, and I don't believe we display it.
Yeah.
So if that's something somebody needs, we could certainly entertain putting that in there. So
yeah, it really has no bearing on it. It's just kind of an internal flag for you. So when you're looking at the event as the event planner, you can go, oh yeah, I want to mark this as VIP, but it has no bearing on the calendar. If you mark an event as private, a VIP event, it's not going to show on the calendar. If you leave it as public, it will show on the calendar. So that public private flag is the only way to control it that way. The VIP is just more of an internal flag for you that way. Right. Any other questions? Katie's got one more here. She's asking if requesters can mark their own events as private. We showed it on the planner side. Do you want to talk to that or?
yeah, currently requesters, all of the events they put in are public events. They don't have the option to mark it as private. Nobody's asked for it. So, I mean, if there's an interest in that, we could certainly, put that on there.
One of the ways that that's handled right now is you can ask them an event question that's like, do you want to keep this off the public calendar or do you want to post this to the public calendar? You can ask that question, and then when you process the event in your intake and look at it and review it, if they mark, no, I don't want this on the public calendar, that's when your event planner or whoever's reviewing it can mark it as private then. So that's one way to handle it. We've kind of left that out of the requester's hands, at least right now. So. Great. Might have a public calendar convert here. So what Katie's saying. So it's good to hear.
If there's anybody on the call that currently uses the calendar, do you like it? Is there anything you'd like to see on it?
Yeah. Or anybody that wants to share their public calendar with anybody, if you've got one that you just want to show off and show us what you did. We know there's a few out there and people that are using it pretty heavily. We know that because we can see a lot of traffic going to the public calendar for some organizations. So we know some of these are getting used pretty heavily. But yeah, feel free to share it if you want to give people some ideas or give us some feedback. So. All right.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay.
Yeah, Spencer just put in the chat how they're using theirs. So those of you watching the chat, that's a good comment in there. So yeah, they can be a time saver. I mean, we know that, we've heard that feedback from people. And like I said, we see some of these calendars are getting quite a bit of usage. So all right. Well, it feels like things are kind of wrapping up here, so we'll go ahead and kind of wrap things up. Stay tuned for next month's Mazévo Connect. We don't have it set in stone yet, but the topic is probably going to be on effectively using the confirmation or something about that, or something like that, I should say. Oh, if you're in the chat, Nancy just put her calendar in there if anybody wants to click on that and kind of see what they've done. So there's their Nancy with a church, so you can kind of see that. So awesome. Thank you, Nancy. Great. Okay.
Good.
All right. Well, we'll let everyone get on with their Friday. Thank you so much for joining here with us today. We really appreciate your participation, everybody, and we look forward to seeing everybody next month. So have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.